The Banshee, a name etched in GTA's history. But in GTA 5, one version was known as the ultimate drift car, the Banshee 900R. And then when everyone discovered the Banshee 900R can be lowered by applying no bulletproof tyres and shooting the wheel arch to lower it, they realised what this thing was capable of. We had the drift tuning vehicles that were added recently, but the enjoyment, the skill, just not the same. These new drift tuning vehicles almost feel the same as each other and change the whole physics of the game. They're literally their own category. But now we have the Banshee GTS, which comes with HSW as well. And now this is the new contender for the best drift car. And that's what we're going to be looking at in this video, to see if the new Banshee GTS is the best drift car. There's normally something with the 900R that makes it better at drifting. This is a good drift car without actually doing anything to it, just having all the engine upgrades, and it's great at drifting, but it just doesn't do those long extended drifts. And that one thing is lowering the car. Shooting here when you have no bulletproof tires allows the car to get lower like that. And it does change the physics of the game and makes the car more slidey. And then that makes it slip. And once you've lowered all four wheels, you should be able to drift like butter. And it doesn't grip up as easier. It actually takes a while to straighten up. But one thing about the Banshee GTS is you cannot lower it. No matter how much you try, that thing will not lower. So you can still drift this thing, but it is very grippy. So when it does grip up, it does slingshot, which is not ideal for drifting. So as we can't lower this, we are installing low grips on this car. And yeah, sorry that I keep changing Banshee GTSs all the time. The one important thing about drifting cars like this is dumping the clutch. And dumping the clutch, it looks like this. And it's a very useful thing that we use in drifting. Again, with the drift tuning upgrades, you don't need to do this. And it's just a process of traveling around 30 miles an hour, letting go of the acceleration, tapping handbrake, and then accelerating again. And the reason this is useful is because you can initiate a drift whenever you want. So you can initiate the drift just like that and get your wheels spinning. And yeah, you can just drift the way you want to. You can get your car spinning before anyone else really can. Now I'm going to show the most efficient number 11 I can do. So yeah, quite a good number 11, goes all the way through second gear. And obviously we need to see if the new Banshee GTS can do this. Okay, here's my HSW version with low grips. Let's see how good the dumping the clutch is. And it's amazing. Even when you shift to the next gear, you could double clutch again at those high speeds, which is only very minimal cars you can do it on, them being all HSW vehicles. So you're probably thinking, in hindsight, this should make this a better drift car, because it can keep spinning at very high speeds. And that's something we're going to further investigate. And I normally say in my how to drift videos, once you've conquered dumping the clutch, you can then practice around a roundabout just like this. The Banshee obviously is the best example. I cannot explain why it's the best candidate, but it always has been. And now to see if the Banshee GTS is better than the Banshee 900R. As you can hear with the shifts, that I'm constantly dumping the clutch. Now to see if the Banshee GTS is also good at drifting, and it really is. Like, the nose points in. Okay. Really? Did she just fall over the... But yeah, let's wait for these pedestrians to clear. And I did this right next to a police station. Well, let's drift and also get shot at by the police whilst we do this. It shouldn't affect our performance until they shoot the tyre. But as you can see, it's also a very good drift car. It's holding the drift well, and it does seem like it's a bit more torquier, so it is spinning up faster. Of course, to do this, I'm not fully accelerating. I'm accelerating and then letting off the throttle as well. Otherwise, I'll just spin out. Now, before you do think this, I did try every other Banshee option. With the normal Banshee HSW, with the Banshee 900R lowered and low grips. The 900R and low grips are pretty good, but I did learn that the Banshee GTS just suits low grips a lot more. The 900R was like a lot of torque and not that much horsepower. And going up the hill, it wasn't satisfying. It was just wheel spinning and it was slow drifting up hills. Down hills, I think it's really easy to control. And it makes it easier than the Banshee 900R without low grips. But then when you take the low grips off the Banshee 900R and you use it the way it was supposed to be used and the way it was titled the best drift car in GTA, you realize it loses a lot of its good features that it had with low grips, but then it gains other features that made it special and made it the best drift car. Without low grips, you can control the speed a lot more, and you can make it not spin out as much and to correct easier. Now the Banshee GTS is surprisingly good, but there's a major difference between the 900R. With the 900R, you have to work your way through the corners. You have to try to make sure the car has power and it's going to make the corner, and obviously that is by dumping the clutch. With the Banshee GTS, it's nearly the opposite. You have to feather the throttle, you have to let go of the throttle a lot of times, you have to put less work in the car, otherwise you're going to spin out. The Banshee GTS has too much power. Is the Banshee GTS the new best drift car? This is such a hard thing to answer. Of course we have to avoid, like I said in the intro, all the drift tuning vehicles, but I've seen the Banshee GTS do drifts I've never seen any other car do with low grips. But this car is so temperamental, gives you some room to take some angle, but then a slight bit over, which it will snap to, and you spin out. But the longer and longer I practiced this car, the better and better it got. So you do need practice with this vehicle, a lot of it. But the one thing that the Banshee 900R has over this car, which I think is the most important thing, it happily sits at an angle. And you will feel when it's about to spin on you, and it does it so slowly. So you've got a bit of time to correct it. With the Banshee GTS, you do not have that. It's so hard to say if it's the best drift car. But I think with a lot more practice, this is a car that you can't have a little bit of practice with. With a lot more practice, you can make this the best drift car in GTA. You just have to be really good at using it. And when you can, you're going to get some really good clips. To the point where people are going to think that it's a drift tuning vehicle, or you're modding on PC. Okay, hello, we get it. It's near enough the best drift car. So how do you drift it? Well, as I said earlier, this will take a lot of practice. But you do, in my opinion, need to learn the double clutch method, which is, you know, let going off the throttle, handbrake, and then acceleration. And as you saw there, I span out. This car needs to be handled with, you need to be delicate with the throttle. Like, you cannot fully accelerate all the time. You need to use the handbrake to control the car. And that's not because we're going downhill. That's all the time. This car going at high speeds, you can just turn into the corner and it will slide. You don't need to use the handbrake or anything. You just learn to turn and then quickly correct. And I'm just touching acceleration and letting go, and then I'm just correcting my car. I'm turning left when the car's sliding right. So I'm accelerating when I want to turn a sharp bend. I tap R1 and accelerate and modulate the throttle. If I'm just accelerating really fastly like this and it's a mild bend, I can just turn into it and control and hope there's no oncoming traffic. You'll be surprised at how good you are at drifting. Once you just have like an hour of practice, you'll realize that it's not as hard as it seems the first few tries that you do this. Because I get it, I get why people get put off drifting when they first try it out. Okay, I'm in the mountains here just drifting and okay. But all I'm doing here is accelerating and turning left and right. Look, just turning left and right, that's all I'm doing with the throttle. And it looks like I'm drifting, and it is really fun. And soon as really you see this car sliding, you should correct and let go of the throttle if you think you're going to spin out. And you will spin out. You'll spin out quite a lot. You'll crash quite a lot the first few times. And then you'll just get to a stage where you just get really good at it. And I'm just going to leave the how to drift video in the description. If you guys find that helpful, it really shows you how to drift. Let me know if you want to see an updated version with the Banshee GTS. But that video, I wish I had it when I started, then I would not make that many errors or not have to learn myself. So that video does show the controller view. Okay, so final verdict. Weirdly, the Banshee 900R and the Banshee GTS are very similar when you're not drifting them. The handling is similar. The weight distribution is very similar, but it really is like the GTS is just a very powerful version. And clearly that helps in long drifts, and you just have to work less with the car, but work more on correcting your oversteer. So it's easier to initiate the drift, but harder to maintain it. So that how to drift video will be linked in the description. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy it, and see you guys in the next one.